Okay. Hi and welcome, everybody. We are back, and I'm sitting here again, the second time, with Yeshua, and I'm Patrick, and together we are on this journey with a podcast of A Matter of Trust.
Hell yeah.
And today the topic we chose is failure, and we're gonna dive into that, probably relevant to everybody. So we have some questions just to get us started. The first question I'm going to ask you, Joshua, just to get right into it, and then we just see what happens, right?
Yeah,
First
sure.
question. First question. Why does failure feel like failure?
Right. Yeah. And it's a kind of first when I read the question, we share these questions before we make this call. We share them with each other, and we kind of last time we discussed them, and this time we just made them for ourselves. But it's an interesting question, this one, because why does failure feel like failure? And the reason why I think failure feels like failure is because failure is some kind of disappointment. It's expectations that haven't quite been met. So, in general, as human beings, we do not like to be wrong or be on the wrong path or do something that is not aligned with ourselves. So we kind of see failure as something. Sometimes we see failure as something that is a hindrance to us achieving our full potential. When in reality, I would argue that you could kind of see failure as a redirection of energy, which is like attention and focus. Um, so actually, it can be beneficial. But to put the short answer to the question, I I think it's because that we tend to see failure as disappointment because we have certain expectations. Our ego wants things to be in a certain way. And when things are not followed through that well as we anticipated, we'll be disappointed, and we'll kind of not see what the real lesson behind it really was if we choose to see that failure,
Mm,
because that is really up to the perception.
yes. What you say, I think it sounds, I mean, I agree. I've been thinking similar thoughts, and I also was reminded of the word flexibility, if we get disappointed, maybe it's also the more disappointed we feel, or, or the more failure we feel in life, maybe it is because we are not that flexible with the outcome of things. So this, I don't know, this word flexibility came to me. That's something. So disappointment is, you also mentioned that it can be a lesson. It can be something else. So do we need do we need failure? I mean, is it good? Is it?
Well, I think yes. I think yes, we need failure. Just imagine a life where everything just succeeds with everything you do the very first time you do. And just imagine how fucking boring that would be. Like, and why is that boring? You can do anything and everything the first time you do it. Why would that be boring? Because challenges and bumps make us more sturdy. We, as humans, as having this experience we have as humans,
Sorry,
we learn
bumps,
very,
like bumps on the road, right?
yeah, like
Yeah,
humps, bumps, whatever,
yeah.
potato, whatever you want to call it. But the truth, the way I see it, we as humans learn very effectively when we have a very heavy emotional impact, like heavy emotional experience. Some people call these traumas. And when just imagine like this, you've probably imagined one time before that something has just happened one time in your life not more than one time, just this one time. And from that one time, you can see how that has emotionally impacted you to create your patterns of thinking, acting, being. So you have learned this one thing from this very, very emotionally heavy thing that you once experienced. I have an example, for example. I was a little kid, and as a little kid, I loved to touch everything. Like I was, what is this? And how does this feel? And there was this truck going. It was parked at this point, but it was just about to go. And something inside me was like, I really just want to touch like those flaps that is behind the wheel. There's like these flaps for the mud not to splatter. So I just want to touch it because it looked fluffy. I was like, is it fluffy? I want to touch it. So I went over to touch it, and it was just like it just wanted like one of those mats like you use for your shoes. But the moment I did that, the driver was like, and I was jumping like half a meter up in the air, and I just kept walking, like nothing happened. And he went out of the truck and said, "What the fuck are you doing, kid? Are you completely insane? I mean, you could have gotten hurt." I was like, "Shit, sorry, I just want to touch that thing. That's all. It's curiosity."
How old?
And I was probably 8 or 9, I think, maybe. I was not that old. I was just walking to the shop, and like this thing happened. And now when I hear like honks or am near a truck or something like that, I get this fear running through me because emotionally I just remember, my body remembers that experience as something dangerous, even though it wasn't dangerous. I just touched that thing and it was going away from me, and I didn't stand in the way or anything like that. It was ridiculous, but the emotional heaviness, the very impact of that emotion of this guy first honking at me and then screaming at me afterwards really imprinted this in me that, oh, this is dangerous. So when I was curious, like in the future about certain things, I was very hesitant. I'm still very hesitant in some cases to do something out of curiosity. That is a little bit courageous. I've come far away, but still there because of this one experience. And it's something that we should really sit down sometimes and think about, like, oh, what have I actually experienced, and what kind of impact does that have in my life right now? So, but
yeah,
to get back on the point, yeah, to get back on the point, it can both be that, but it can also be a good experience. So, for example, your first sale, your first client, your first customer, you have this certain rush through your body that you just remember, and everything just gets easier in accordance to sales and clients and such. And this is because if we have to take it in terms of physiology, for example, it's because that these emotions create chemicals within the body that you remember and you get addicted to. That's why some people like to watch horror movies, for example, because they're addicted to the chemicals that is excreted in this process of watching this horror shit, whatever it is, And yeah, it's interesting. So you can transmute something from being a failure. You can transmute that experience into being something fruitful, something that aids you in your process, because it kind of clarifies. It's every time you take an action, and to fail you have to take action. And every time you take an action, you get a little bit more clear. And when you fail on something that you are doing, well, you get even more clear about that. So there's this you can call it alchemical process. And by alchemical, I mean that you transmute from one state, one emotion in this case, to another, one perception to another. That you just take the same energy and you just choose with your perception how to perceive.
So
Yes.
so can I also add something here? Because yeah, you mentioned the lesson, and I guess, and you mentioned the action. So we need to take action to actually risk failing, but then there's actually the possibility of turning that failure or feeling of failure into something like a lesson, like something that moves you forward. And I was reminded of something. There was a girl that once said to me, and it really stuck with me. She said, "Patrick, sometimes the most valuable things you do and try in life are actually when you try something and you find out that was not for me." Uh, because you just narrow in. You just, okay, don't have to worry about that anymore. Tried that step, and now, okay, it's gone. I can leave it behind, and I don't have to think, what if I did? What if? What if? No, it's simplified. My life is simplified. So after that, I was like, okay, let me just try stuff and see, and if I don't like it, I'm like, cool. I'm even smarter now about knowing myself. So yeah, this stuck with me, and it's really like, yeah, we need to take action and so when you said that, I also was thinking, yeah, okay, so it must be very important that failure, or maybe the fear of failure, if we failed, we might be scared to try again. But and you know it from the truck thing, you said you're still working on it, and you kind of have to keep working on it. Like, I have to work on my traumas and things that happened to me that scared me, because otherwise we stop. Otherwise, there's no lesson. If we don't dare to fail again or try again, and actually that brings me to, you also tried to, mentioned different words, but it kind of brings us to, so is it bad to call it failure? Should we call it something else, or is it sometimes good to call it failure? I think yes, both actually, but like, there's probably a difference, right? Uh, shouldn't walk around. I don't know. There's something about this. Should we avoid the word, or when should we not and should
Well,
call it something else if we should?
the thing about if you call something like that a failure, what you also do is that you perceive to see that you have been unsuccessful. And this is not the case when you fail, because you're always like, the way I see it, life is an adventure. So this is a whole movie set. We are all actors that are acting accordingly to the big story with our own free will. It's a big mess, but it's a lovely mess. And seeing something as failure is also accepting that you are unsuccessful, and that's a perpetual cycle of failure and doubtful behavior. It just continues. Oh, I failed. Oh, I'll never be this and that, and oh my God, and it's overwhelming. It's doubtful behavior. It's doubtful thinking. So what we can do instead is that we can see it as a redirection. So, for example, I was working in network marketing, and in this area, we were working on consciousness as well, in terms of business and such. And
Hmm.
there was something about it for me that seemed disaligned, like it was not aligned completely with how I um, approach certain things regarding consciousness. And I I couldn't give it my all
Hmm.
in that period because I wasn't aligned with it. it was not something that I was driven to do. Actually, it made me suicidal because it was just so fucking, oh
Whoa.
my God. It was, yeah, really. And the point is that if I saw that as failure instead of redirection, I would probably still be suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. I chose to see it as, well, okay, I actually see there's value beyond this. And when you
Mm-hmm.
see that there's value beyond this, you start to open your mind to possibilities and opportunities that is coming your way, that is really wanting to, desiring to take up space within your being. Like I think I've mentioned this before, but life is like a circle, and you're always a complete circle. The question is what you fill this circle up with.
Mm-hmm.
So to get something new into life, you have to let some of the parts of the circle go, so you can attract that which is aligned with what you're doing. Um, yeah, like example from my life right now is a diet, for example,
Mm-hmm.
because it's because I kind of have let myself think in that my diet is restricted to certain items,
Mm-hmm.
but that's complete bullshit. So I've been eating like food that isn't that healthy, and I've also seen some repercussions. For example, today I didn't train for as long as I would because yesterday I was eating a fucking muffin before I went to you know? And I was just realizing this before I went to bed, like, and I was listening to this podcast. No, this it was a video with Dolores Cannon,
Mm-hmm.
and she talked about letting go of things, and when she did that, I just threw this muffin away. I was like, I'm not gonna take that again. I'm not gonna eat this shit again. And
You felt the
and
difference
so
the next day.
yeah, like when I woke up this morning, I was like, oh, that fucking muffin, man. you know.
Hmm.
But I did, so I was kind of late to going to work out early in the morning. Late.
Mm-hmm.
But and the reason why I say late is because it's a matter of perception again.
Mm-hmm.
So I could see this morning that I didn't take all the exercise that I usually do, and that I ate a muffin like a failure. I could also see it as a redirection because from yesterday, I now know and am now come more connected with myself as I am desired to be. And if I didn't go through that, I would not be as aligned. I would not be redirected into something that is more appropriate for who I'm creating to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the real value of failure, that you get these chances, these opportunities to actually break down something. You take a part of the circle out and you attract that which is aligned with, and by that I mean that you attract that which is which is inside of you, that part of you that wants to shine out to the world and share with the world, and be even more of what you know that you can.
Hmm. So I was thinking, because this yeah, redirection, I like that. And for example, with the muffin, you sound pretty strong and disciplined when you can say, okay, I ate the muffin. I don't like how I feel the day after when I work out. I didn't like, you mentioned how you trained less and now you're gonna let go of the muffin. And now I was like,
Yeah,
it
fuck the
sounds like
muffin, man.
yeah, it sounds like self-discipline. It sounds like something that takes self-discipline. And I just was thinking, so what what can bring people there? Or like, what about the cases where it's almost a pattern? Maybe that's I don't know if it's for this episode, but if you have the failure thing going on, if you eat the muffin and you cannot help it, it's really hard to let. For some people, if it's hard to let go of it, I know I have habits that I am working on and I'm changing, but some are harder for me to change than others. Some is like fine, and others I see, it's easy for me to fall back if I'm not careful. And so there's something about seeing it, maybe seeing it as redirection, but also, linking it to some discipline, right? There's
Right.
something going on
So
here.
yeah, definitely. So like I had that. It was difficult for me to kind of cut the case, so to say, a couple of days prior to that. And I was constantly thinking about, well, this is just a temporary state. It's not going to last forever. At some point, I'll just have enough of this and I'll throw it away by myself. And I did yesterday,
Mm,
and I think key is knowing that it's temporary. So it doesn't last forever. And the key to manage that in a sense of practicality is micromanaging. And micromanaging is like looking at, okay, well, I see this happen and I might still have it and I might still do, for example, with the cakes. Um, if I had like a bag of 6 cakes and I would eat like 5 of them the same day, I could then take the last one and really feel like, these cakes just doesn't feel that good to me. And I could take that last cake and just throw it out, because that tells yourself, I don't give a shit about this. I feel this, and this is what I think about this. Throw it in the trash. You might go back the next day and do the same shit again, but keep doing that, and you keep telling yourself, I don't want this. At some point, it just clicks for you, and you have had enough. You don't eat this shit no more, and you just throw it out. It's with every thing like cigarettes, for example. You can smoke a cigarette, and at some point when the thought reach your mind that I actually don't like smoking, why am I doing this? Throw it away. You might take one later. You might take one 5 minutes or 10 minutes later, doesn't matter. But the fact that you throw it away tells you and tells the universe that I'm disciplining myself. I'm building a habit of stopping this, no matter the cost.
so you're showing yourself that I am capable of saying no. Maybe in the beginning I don't say no all the time, but I can say no. And yeah, it makes sense. Makes
Micromanaging, because
micromanaging, yeah.
because taking big steps is hard. Like it's very hard to just cut. I've done with many things, but it's really hard. It takes a lot from you. It takes all your focus to, for example, with cannabis or cigarettes, which was the hardest things to stop for me.
Mm,
It is, it's hard to just cold turkey. You can do it, but it's hard. Micromanaging is disciplining yourself. Like also if you go work out, like it doesn't matter if you work out for 2 hours or 3 hours or someday you do 1 hour, as long as you go when you build that habit, you will
mm-hmm,
see that your body and your whole being will start to create these new patterns of being. One example of that is that I usually count like a minute between my sets when I train,
mm-hmm.
and I've trained myself to get ready at the count of 50. And today I realized that all by myself, every time I count 50, I just, without thinking about it, I get ready and I stand ready to take the reps again to the next set. And I was just enjoying that and seeing, no, this is awesome. I haven't worked on it for too long. It really went by fast, but now it sits there. And
Mm,
every time I'm counting, it just happens natural. It's incredible how that works.
yeah. It's also taking action when you train. I've been thinking that maybe the fact that you do take action and decided to build the habit of training, maybe that also makes it easier with the muffin decision because you get the feedback, right? If you only worked on cutting down on muffins but didn't take action in a in a direction that is opposite. To get good energy for training, you don't live on muffins. Like, so kind of the more muffins, the harder the training. The more training, the worse the muffin will probably feel because you need real good nutrition, right? So
Right.
that's taking action. That's redirecting yourself also, whilst micromanaging the muffin. So,
Right.
right, that is taking action in another direction.
Exactly. And when we're talking about failure now, for example, like it happened before that I chose to decide to cut the cakes and
Mm-hmm.
the corn dogs and all that, because when I ran, I always run in the morning when I train as a warm up, and I realized that it started hurting around my liver when I ran,
Mm.
and it stopped the moment I stopped to eat these things. And
So
then I was resting for a couple of days, also because I had to clean my clothes. I have clean clothes now. It's awesome.
nice.
And yeah, it's very nice. And also, you know, you you can fall back, but the thing is, it doesn't matter, because the more you build upon the probability that you succeed, creating a better direction for yourself, the more you create a more desirable version of yourself. And you're eliminating that, because that's that part of you that isn't aligned with your true potential. Because who's gonna last long? The guy that runs and trains endurance every day, or the guy that eats muffins? If you take the timelines of those two, who's gonna have the longest and most prosperous life? I know who it is. The guy who
Yeah.
runs, the guy who trains, the guy who eats muffins. He's probably dying at the age of, I don't know, 70. I don't know. I don't know. Say maybe if I'm lucky, 80. Yes, if I were that muffin man. But the truth is, I'm choosing the man that trains. And when I do that, I see a long, prosperous life. I see that this version of myself is going to last even longer, because
Mm.
the very thing that I'm training there is endurance, it's discipline, it's going beyond myself. And the more I do that, even though I fail, the more I do that, the more consistency I'm putting into creating this new being, this new life of myself. And that's really where the focus should be. Like, fuck your fails, they don't matter. They're just
Mm-hmm.
redirection.
Yeah.
All that matters is that you could keep on being consistent in building
And
yourself and
and
what you're
and
trying or what you're creating.
and I think it's important what you mentioned that yeah, fallbacks happen, setbacks. Like, yeah, then one day we miss out on something we want to make a daily habit, like training, for example, or we eat some sweet that was not the plan, but then yeah, not to think too much about it and remember that next day is a new day, and we just keep going. I mean, it doesn't mean just because we have a setback or fallback, then it doesn't mean we should be bothered too much about it. We should actually move on and realize we are still building this. It's not like, oh, now I reached, now I'm done. No, we're continuously building habits. Even if we don't think about it, everything we'll do will turn into habit if we just do it a couple of times. I don't know how many that, but that's yeah, that's
Yeah,
also a key.
yeah, definitely. Also, it's when you fail and you talk open about it, you connect with people, you connect with their pain. People can understand that and relate to that. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you step on through that and you show up and you go through that, you actually empower them to do the same, because you show up. You show, well, I'm not immortal or anything like that. In
Mm-hmm.
that sense, I'm not any better than you guys. What I'm just doing is I'm focusing on creating a better version of myself. And when you show up like that and people can see where you come from, then you actually start to really connect, really deeply connect with people. And they they can see themselves in that.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter where you are in life, there's always people from what you're doing that you're inspired. Look at it this way. Your whole life's an adventure, right? So when you live life like an adventure, there's always going to be these, like I mentioned before, bumps, humps on the road.
Mm.
And that makes up for a story. Like if your whole life is a movie, it would be a dead boring movie if everything just succeeded. Like, okay, we have Snow White here. She finds the prince just by opening the door. Oh, happily ever after. It's fucking boring. People,
Not much to talk about, maybe.
no, exactly. Like there has to be the gap, like in between where all the funny stuff happens, where all the adventure is. Because if there wasn't that, what would there be? There would be a beginning and an ending, and those things would be the same thing. In fact.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be no filling. It would be like eating a sandwich without eating anything.
Yeah.
I don't know how to
That's
put it.
I think that's yeah, that's a good thing to ponder on for listeners and us while I cut the recording. Number one, I'm gonna start another one. But before the recording cuts us, I think now I'm gonna cut it, and we will be back. Just a minute.